Ha, ha. Okay, get a seat. This last part of this afternoon, we have a speaker and again some interviews. And the speaker we have now is Dr. Jeffrey Stevenson. I remember the man way back to the beginnings of Christian Artist Seminar when he was Jeffrey Stevenson, an artist. So he made a very interesting move of being an artist to become an artist of the word. He was mime artist. And I still have to look in the ancient archives, some of the videos of your performances. That would be wonderful. So Jeffrey will help us understand to look to another part of what you can do as an artist to make your life work. Jeffrey, it's up to you.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Lane. I'm going to use words for the moment. The talk is about vocation and identity and stress or burnout. And we have begun to look at those today. I want to look at some of the theory of it, and I'll be asking a couple of people to join me on the stage. But the self-employed artist, vocation, identity, and burnout. Last month I had the proud moment of attending the ordination service of my son Alistair, one of our youngest. You'll see him; he's the handsome one there on the left. Who you may remember him playing the saxophone here one year. He was ordained a priest in the Church of England. And is now working for a big evangelical church in Sheffield. He's still very much involved in music and singing and leading worship for the church, and uses an impressive range of instruments. Alistair is, of course, answering a call from God to serve the church in particular ways, preaching and leading and pastoring. And he and the church believe that he has a vocation. And the church denomination has helped him to test this sense of call, which he's had for maybe 5 or 6 years. And they've given him several years of academic and practical training to equip him for a ministry. And they held a service in Sheffield Cathedral to ordain him in this call to ministry and laying hands on him. And to mark and to affirm his call in the presence of the church community. Don't you wish it was like that for artists? Not every profession, least of all self-employed artistic professions, ordain its practitioners in this way. Wouldn't it be great, though, to have your inner call welcomed and explored and tested and affirmed by others, and to be sponsored, to given money for training and learning not just skills, but how to be part of the whole world of fellow artists, and to end with an elaborate ceremony that sends you forth, and then to be apprenticed for 3 or 4 years to more experienced practitioners. It sounds a bit like some forms of classical musicianship, but I don't think it's the case for very many art forms. Let me take you a little bit further into this question of vocation and the drive to create and to be an artist, with a look at a little known artist, Séraphine de Senlis. Séraphine is a film was made in 2008 about a troubled primitive artist, Séraphine Louis. She was known in the art world as Séraphine de Senlis, which was the town where she lived and worked. And though ostensibly she was a shepherdess and a housekeeper, and her chief duties were cooking and cleaning and ironing, in her off hours she turned joyously to natural elements of the outdoor world. And she felt a tremendous emotional and spiritual communion there. And she channeled these undying passions through painting. And having only the barest materials at hand, she created paints from elements such as animal blood and oil from church candles and dirt pulled from the ground. And with these crude and these raw tools, this budding artist created tableaux of great floral arrangements. They were utterly unlike any that had been seen before. Now, by the time she was discovered, she was nearly 50. And an art critic and dealer named Wilhelm Ude discovered her in 1912. And he barely had a chance to encourage her before he had to flee France at the start of World War I. He rediscovered her. He came back in 1927. And after a promising reception for her work and a good degree of prosperity that took her out of housekeeping, her fortunes again went south, again went down when the Great Depression killed the art market. And lifelong mental imbalance became a psychotic breakdown in the early 1930s, and she died in a mental institution in 1942, not having painted for a very long time. And I'd like to show you a very short clip from early in this film, Séraphine, which was made in 2008, starring Yolande Moreau. Okay, could we have the lights down for this short clip?
Veni Creator Spiritus, mentes tuorum visita, in ple super gratia, qui tu creasti pectora, accende lumen sensibus, in firma nostri corpori, virtute firmans perpeti. Oh.
So, what is it to have a call, a vocation for the social planner, for the civil servant? A vocation is work that you do that makes you a functioning and productive member of society. In the romantic ideal of the artist, it's more about an inner call. Not a voice exactly, but you realize it's not just your own longing and desire either. It's a sense, it's a suspicion, it's a hope that God wants you to develop and to use a gift, a talent. It's in the mind, but it seems to be coming from outside, from more than the mind, from beyond the self. And the call grows. It can be hard to shake off. It's resistant to argument. It's an urge. It's a desire. It's enough to send you to the rehearsal room, to keep practicing the scales and arpeggia, to spend hours at the ballet bar, to draw and erase and draw and erase and draw again. And is that enough to count as a call? Well, for some, and don't we love the stories of the driven artist, especially tortured-driven artist, who paint or write or play like they do because they can't conceive of doing anything more compelling or interesting, like Seraphine. Well, I think it's probably worth just remembering and adding into it, at least from a theological point of view, that all forms of work are participation in God's work. Timothy Keller, the New York preacher, wrote that. And it should be a reminder of the dignity and the specialness of all kinds of working contributions to our common life, and not to overvalue the religious ones or the romantic ones. And the English writer Dorothy L. Sayers, the writer-playwright, said the only Christian work is good work well done. The only Christian work is good work well done. A further topic to, I think, explore together in the bar as well as in the past archives of the CA seminar. So, but, you know, would-be artists will put up with a lot to pursue their dreams. When I was a young and would-be actor, I began to specialize in mime and physical theater. I was following such greats as Marcel Marceau, Jean-Louis Barrault, and I trained for a time in London at a school run by Adam Darius. Adam Darius was a former ballet dancer and choreographer, and moved into what he called expressive mime. And he had in the studio, in the school, a highly autocratic, not to say dictatorial style, utterly aloof personality. You could not approach him without permission from his assistant, kind of thing. Students were expected to pay rapt attention to him while he was speaking, and in a certain posture. You had to be sitting on the floor of the studio in a certain way while he was teaching. And exercises were done in silence except for his voice. And he knew and shamed you when you were not concentrating or working with absolute commitment and energy. Reprimands and scolding were frequent, with occasionally ridicule of those who didn't reach his standards of obedience or skill or beauty of form. "Why should I be kind and gentle with you?" he would say. "Do you think the professional world of theater will be gentle with you?" So you put up with a lot, and far worse, I'm sure, in training, and you see an awful lot of stubbornness and a determined quality. And these are commingled, aren't they, with the desire to do good work, and perhaps the need to please, or to wring from the master some small drop of praise. And the student needs to know, discerning this vocation, am I good enough? Do I have talent? And if so, can I call this combination of a stubborn drive, maybe an exhibitionistic tendency, a desire for audience approval, this love of form and beauty, and this urge to create some or all of these things maybe you will recognize. Can I call this cluster of urges and desires, can I call that vocation? And if I am a practicing Christian, can I call this a vocation from God? So you are passionate, you are talented, you are trained or beginning to be trained, and you're out of work. Well, there was a time for expressing doubts and fears and hesitation, but it's not now. And perhaps there have been times when you felt gifted and superior and special, But not now. You can't afford feelings like that. And there were times when you drank late with friends and talked about changing the world, and you dreamt of glory and success, but not now. It's not the time for that. Now, I must work. Now I must audition, I must rehearse, I must prepare for the next exhibition, I must fill in the application for training or for the grant. I must get on with it. I look ahead and I see unfinished tasks. I look at the present and I'm frustrated with slow progress. But sometimes, just sometimes, I look back and I see, yeah, there's a body of work with maybe one or two good pieces. I couldn't play that passage before, and now I can. I barely knew so-and-so, that great master, and now now he says nice things to me. That other artist, we now work together. We didn't before. And as a Christian, I say, you, Lord, you've been faithful. You've been granting peace as well as holy disturbances. And you've been providing fellow wayfarers to journey parts of the way. So, does this make a calling? Is this a vocation? To be honest, I can't always tell. I would like a nice neon sign in the sky. How many have prayed for that? Just something really, really, really obvious. A voice from heaven. Instead, I often have to accept uncertainty and mystery and attempt to discern your guidance, Lord, in the past, and to give thanks for where you can be seen. So, I'd like to invite a couple of artists to come up. They both happen to be musicians with very different experiences. One a good friend, known for many years. One I've only just met, look forward to getting to know better. I'm not going to interview that. I'm going to leave it to Jill to carry on the interview process with others later on, which she's been doing so brilliantly. But for the moment, to explore this question of vocation for a couple of minutes before we move on to the next topic, John Featherstone and Rivellino Rigters. Please give an applause for them. I don't know how much introduction to give either of these two. I certainly give them microphones, John is a semi-classically trained musician, classically trained, works in piano and choral work. Rivellino is working in rap music and other forms.
Yeah, rap music and is this on? Yeah. Rap music and singer-songwriters, heavy soul is what I call it. And I work a lot with youth in prison.
And you're working with youth in prison. I'm glad you mentioned that. And John, you're creating choral pieces, working principally in France, but across Europe.
Haven't been put in prison yet, yeah.
And haven't been put in prison yet. But when you get there, Rivellino will...
That's fine. Look forward to seeing it.
Okay.
I'll have the coffee ready.
I just wanted to spend 4 or 5 minutes looking at this idea of vocation and calling from your experience. May be able to take a question or two. But in your art form or particular area of your art form, what's the usual process of finding out whether you have a call? What sort of things do young artists go through?
For me, I think is the sort of a sense that there is absolutely no other possibility. If you've got a job and you like it and you want to carry on with it, don't think about becoming an artist. But you might need to keep some money coming in while that process becomes confirmed. But for me, the first thing is what do I desperately want to do? And for me, the choice was stay as a teacher, carry on wearing suits and ties, or do where my heart really was, and that was writing music, singing music, going away at the weekend for concerts, forgetting to do all the marking, getting in a bad reputation with the students as a result of it. But that was where my heart was, and when push came to shove, I knew where I wanted to go.
Rivellino.
Well, if I look from my perspective, it would be like really burning desire to get out on stage, share your music, and it was actually sort of like a double purpose in a way, because I really found myself, in the weekends going out for shows, driving long distances, sometimes abroad as well, and starting up, just so not making a lot of money in the beginning, but really knowing, okay, this is what I want to do. And but I also hit the wall, hit the wall a couple of times with my head. Like, okay, so this is not working. I need to find another way. And yeah, for me, it was like really finding a purpose that would be like higher than me. So not only being on stage, I mean, I'm a Christian, I'm an artist, or I'm an artist and I believe in Jesus. And for me, it was like, okay, so what is like the right order, for finding out, so how do I do it and what works for me?
Yeah. And what do you say to, or what do you see happening in other young people who want to follow the same career? How do you advise or counsel or talk to them about vocation or calling?
Well, I think the trouble is that the media would put up for you that you just need to go in for a competition and then suddenly you're a great singer. Whereas in actual fact, the whole thing is preparation. The whole thing is listening to advice, working. When I heard a young drummer met a drummer friend of mine, great professional, and he said to the drummer, "Have you got a word of advice for me?" And the drummer said, "Yeah, play." And he said, No. Is there a really important? Yes, play. Anytime you can, play. And so all I'd say is that it really, cannot suddenly click into place. You have to have, I think, a history that builds up to the point when you have to let go of something because you can't hold on to everything at the same time. And using the opportunities to get more and more demanding things, to be involved in more and more demanding things, more and more demanding projects. So just take every opportunity.
Yeah. When I was training, I was told, well, it takes 12 years to make a mime artist. And I thought, well, that's probably arbitrary, but probably right. I won't use the word artist for 12 years. At least I tried not to. Revelina?
If I look at me, it's like I'm self-taught. I haven't followed any official conservatory or like music training, because I went to the conservatories, and one of the questions that I mostly got is, so what do you want to do? Well, I want to perform. So what are you doing now? I'm performing. Okay, keep on doing that and you'll grow. You'll get there, And it was like hard sometimes because like in my head, I already saw where I wanted to be, but that felt like miles or ages away before I could reach that goal. So I just kept on playing and practicing, writing songs, collaborating and touring. But I also noticed like a second purpose. As I mentioned earlier before, was like, it wasn't for me just to stand there being a rock star and having all these fans and touring and putting pictures on Facebook like, yeah, look at me, I'm in this stage right now and I'm working with this producer. That felt like not the only thing for me. It was like a bit too empty. So I started looking for like, okay, so what gives me more satisfaction than just only being on stage and being an artist? And for me, it was like actually going out there and helping the youngsters from the street. Because I was born and raised in Amsterdam, and where I came from, like there were a lot of youth gangs, and eventually I came involved in them. When I was 13, got arrested, came in front of judges, went to youth prison, and I went in and out. And after a while, I noticed that, okay, so this is not working for me or not for my family, so I need to find another way out. And I came in touch with like people that were actually into music, but also into faith, and they told me about like what it is to be a child of God, being a Christian. And when that came into my life, then I sort of got a new dimension. And that dimension sort of later on added up in my career, because like that moment the urge started to help other kids like that were in the same situation as me, and they would listen to rap music. I mean, rap music is like a way of life, a way of thinking, sometimes positive, sometimes negative. They call it a trap lifestyle. I'll explain that to you later in the personal convo. Too much to explain right now, but like the mindset is like, yeah, I need to get the money, I need to hustle, and rapping is like, it's a way to tell about the story about hustling. So I saw that my vocation was broader than just only being a musician, but also like sharing stories and helping the kids find their own story. So the moment that came in, that really sort of broadened my career, you know, because like the last thing I want to share about is I heard a story from another younger brother that he said, like, you know, he was out there going on tour, helping other kids find their purpose, but at a moment, certain moment, he felt like empty. And I really recognized that, you know, because I had that same feeling, like I was going out, burning out, and then I felt really empty, like I'm helping people, but what's my purpose, you know? So I really took a step back and think, okay, so what is my purpose now? And I feel like I found it with the youth prisons combined with the music. So,
okay, well, we're going to talk about burnout a little bit more later on. Can I invite anyone else on this topic of vocation and calling? A question for these two, or maybe something that you'd like to say about it yourself? Can I invite anyone? Got an observation on that. We've touched on it a number of times during today. One way at the back. Can I take one of these microphones? Thank you. Here you are.
So thank you. I'm Katharina from Germany. I do piano and vocals and church music. As far as I understand, I can say something to this vocation thing from my part. Is that right?
Yes, please.
Okay, I found that when I was really ill for a long period of time and I couldn't work in my part-time job I learned in school, and I was very exhausted and kind of burnt out perhaps. What I always could do is playing at the organ and doing little piano concerts. Sometimes I was so exhausted that I could only do this once on Sunday morning. And people would came to me and ask me for concerts in an elderly home or for the church music and so. And for me it was always a sign like my Heavenly Father wants me to do that. And if I'm so unable to do some more jobs or more work and more positive thoughts or something, but this is what I can do at least. And for me it's like a confirmation to keep on with that.
Lovely.
I hope I made it clear. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Thank you. It's beautiful. It's wonderful when that does come out as something where it's a win-win situation. Good. Anything last on vocation? I'm going to make you stand here while I do the next bit, you know, so you can...
Okay. Do you want me to stand as well?
No, you sit. I stand.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
I think it's a strange balance, isn't it, between... it's almost arrogance, taking yourself seriously as an artist. Why do I think anybody wants to listen to me? You know, why do I write a song thinking that somebody else is going to, register with it? Well, that's pretty presumptuous, isn't it? You know, but so there's one side of us which I think you've got to have balls. Excuse the term, but you do. At the same time, you've got to listen to those people around you. And it's very, very difficult, especially in the Christian music scene, to have a dialogue with somebody who's written a song when they claim it's written straight by God, who seems to not have very good grammar and not able to spell and is pretty poor in imagery. So if we can actually have a dialogue, then we can move forward probably in there. So vocation, yeah, but confirmation by other people's comments and those people we trust, those people that we have confidence of to share these things.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you very much. There's more to say on that. I've no doubt. The second topic, and it is related to that, is that of identity and the self. Our sense of personal identity and who we are is bound up with vocation. What do you do is a standard opening question, and it invites you to define yourself by what you are most strongly called to do, or in some cultures by what you earn the most money at. I slip into my American accent to say that. I don't know why. We talk about the vocational self, supported by passion, buttressed by success. But equally, this vocational self can be weakened by failure and almost destroyed, as we shall see later, by burnout. And then this sense of self is composed of a lot of things, some biological, some familial, some obvious, some delusional, some fixed, some fluid. I am husband. I am daughter. I am violinist. I am actor. I am the person nobody talks to. I am the one with 2,400 friends on Facebook. I have thousands of Twitter followers. I am the free spirit. I am law-abiding, and I stick to the rules. I am my blog. I am my garden. I am my workouts. I am my cooking. I am my novel, my painting, my children. And of course, you can be a number of these things. They're not all exclusive. Well, some are. I can't be husband and daughter. I can't be an expectant mother and a triathlon racer. I cannot be the master of an art form and a writer of scholarly books. Well, some can, but I hate them. Like Jonathan Miller. But several selves do kind of coexist, and there is also the relational self, which includes your sense of attachment to family and community. I should say selves, because you may have the experience of being wildly different self when you're with friends from who you are when you're at home with your brothers or sisters or parents. You might also have a fixed or developing online self, finding a safe place to express yourself and come to the aid of others that don't happen, and these things don't happen elsewhere in your life. You become a pastor only online. Someone asked in an online forum recently, what do you do when real life is too busy to be online? But I suspect it was an older person tweeting that, since many young people would see their digital lives as every bit as real as the more flesh and blood or embodied lives. Now, self-discrepancy theories speak of the ideal self and the ought self and the actual self. The ideal self is the person we want to be, and the ought self is comprised of who we think others want us to be, and then there is an actual self based on what we see ourselves being or achieving. And when these different senses of self vary strongly from one another, there are forms of cognitive dissonance, as pointed out there. When our actual self and our ideal self don't align, we can feel disappointed or sad or despondent. When our actual self and our ought self, we typically feel agitated or guilty, distressed, and anxious. So your vocational self may be a large part of your psychic framework, and it may contribute to significant aspects of your ideal self, or your ought self, or your actual self. And if so, you need to be receptive to reality checks. This goes along with the humility that John was talking about. The vocation is not only stubborn, but receptive to other information and feedback. And the danger of being completely out of sync is that either you survive psychologically by being in denial and living in untruth, and you don't listen to God or others, or else you're assaulted by your own cognitive dissonance, eventually succumbing to disappointment, sadness, or worse. And the other side of this, in terms of psychological health and spiritual health, is how you move between the selves. It's vital and healthy to hold them in balance and to recognize creative tension and to allow crosstalk between themselves as a way of being real and a way of listening to God and listening to others. And in each of these kind of connecting worlds of different senses of self, you'll be able to be helped by developing virtuous habits as opposed to habits that drag you down. Generative behavior that pushes things out, and loving practices. And these should be focused on and developed in each of these separate worlds or selves. And it may require discipline towards unhealthy practices, or unloving, or obsessive, or unethical, or immoral. But And finally, I think the most important self, but the one that's most difficult to talk about, is the self that's known by God and knowing God, known by God and knowing God. This morning, Torsten reminded us of this. They say when you find yourself, you can find God. It's easy to say, but a lifetime to understand. But it is present in the best mystical traditions of Christianity. The Franciscan writer and activist Richard Rohr reminds us that people like Augustine of Hippo, Teresa of Avila, Thomas Merton, Karl Rahner, he tell us that the discovery of our deepest self and the discovery of God should be the same discovery. Truly, this is worth a whole conference or perhaps a spiritual retreat, but we don't have that. And I'm going to turn back to the question of your everyday senses of self and ask with the help of you all and my two partners on stage here, how do yourselves, your different selves, how do they coexist? How do they coexist? Any answer on identity and selfhood? We've been very honest today. We've had some very raw and honest contributions, and I appreciate very much people being vulnerable and developing this into the safe family that we want it to be. So you must share in where you feel safest to share. But how do we develop our sense of self, and how do they coexist? Anything you'd like to say there?
Yeah, well, it's interesting, because like in this age, social media has a big role in being an entrepreneur / artist, and it's easy to fall into the trap of setting up yourself like a real great person online, like you set up all the great angles, like, you look at me from this side, or look at me with this person, I'm in the club, and like, yeah. Or like even some colleagues for me, flashing money and like putting up like the big shoes or the big cars, like in the Range Rover. And then at the end of the week, like, okay, so you got a new car? No, it's from a friend. I've borrowed it. And that's all cool, but it's like, it's an online self that's not real. So you're creating expectations that are kind of false in a way. And so for me, as an artist, I try to look at, so how do I present myself in a true way, in an honest way, that can sort of correspond to who I am off stage. Because like I work, when I work with the young kids in the prison, it's like the first thing that they ask me, so how many views do you have on YouTube? That's like really important to them. That's like sort of like status. Yeah. It's like, because some colleague rappers, they have like 1 million views, and like if you come with like 1,000, they're like, okay, so well, yeah, you're not really doing that well, right? So I mean, I have a couple of views, and from 100,000 to 300, but I tell them like, that's not the point. Listen to what I'm saying. Am I bringing you a song that builds you up, or am I bringing you music that you like? Yeah, they're really looking for like music that sort of empowers or understates their way of thinking. Like some of them are still in the mindset that I'm a young thug, I'm a criminal, I need to make my money, and I'm a gangster, so they're flashing guns around. And I'm trying to help them find their own story. So what is your real true self? Where do you come from? What is your pain? And why did you come to this place? And what do you really want to achieve? They just want to be loved by people. They want to be accepted, because their self-esteem is really low, So that's why they hide into that music. And that's like the thing that I don't want to add up to their feeling that they need to be that online gangster or that online rapper that's like, yo, look at me, I'm tough, I'm cool, I got the money, I got the attention. I'm trying to show them a different type of person, and that's real, So yeah, I don't share everything online, but some things.
Just to say, for me, there are two sides to this one. One is, I think one of the difficulties of being a creative temperament is that you cannot actually easily dissect who you are. So everything really affects you. So if something, absurd things that are happening in the media at the moment really do cut me up badly, because I can't sort of just push this away. I started to write a song one day which said, "That's what you get when you wear your heart on your sleeve." I didn't finish the song because I couldn't find anything to go with sleeve. But no, but so that's one side of it. That not being able to distance myself from myself is quite hard. Yeah. And the other side of it, I'd say, is that so therefore you're always fragile. The other thing I'd say is that quite a while ago I did a Myers-Briggs test to see what I was, and I got attributed the INTJ, which incidentally is what Einstein had as well, but let's move on.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah, you as well, yeah. Are you really? We have a long chat about this, yeah. But so INTJ, and I was really disappointed because that basically means that I'm an introvert. An introvert for Myers-Briggs is a person who gets his energy from solitude. And I can tell you without any trouble, that is true. If you want to party with me, don't come, just allow me to be with my wife and we'll have a great party. So that's really, or even on my own, sitting in a garden. I love looking out at the sea. That's one side of me. And recently I did the test again with a specialist. And I turned out to be extremely E and extremely I. In other words, extremely extrovert and extremely introvert, depending on the context. If I felt secure, I was an extrovert. If I was insecure, I was an introvert. I noticed when I sat on the stage, I was like this to start with. But now I'm okay. It's okay, you don't frighten me. You don't frighten me, Jeffrey. But ENTJ or INTJ, and I think that's the two sides of us as well. There's a lot of artists here who are going to be introverts, and yet you have to be an extrovert when you're on a stage. But whatever you do not take on some persona that is just a complete, what's the word? Disguise. Yeah, mask, exactly. My favourite play when I was a student was Le Misanthrope, which is all about a guy who could not avoid telling the truth. And everybody said, well, why are you telling, could you just try and lie a bit? I can't. I mean, I probably do lie, but, I'm just too honest all the time. And so therefore, if I don't like something, I'll probably just disappear. Because I don't want to express something horrible.
Okay, what do you think of this audience? Just trying to get you in trouble.
Yeah.
Very good. Any comments from the floor, from the audience on finding and knowing the self or the selves? Yes, please. Can I borrow a mic? Thank you.
About the ideal self, I think the real question is, who defines what is my ideal self? Where do I have the idea, the structure, what my ideal self is? And what are the rules that define my ideal self? And I think as a Christian, I can get my ideal self out of God's love for me and all the good things we hear in the Bible, we read in the Bible, and that's very helpful.
Yeah.
And being yourself does not necessarily have to mean being rude. You can still be polite and still be yourself. Things like that, how do I react to other people? How do I show myself?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, please, Eva Maria.
Yeah, I have a question because I sometimes I'm an actress and I'm working in the theater since 30 years. So it's a long time working with only artists. 30 years only with artists. And I have the impression that as an artist, you can try to find yourself for 100 years and never find God. Because here on this podium, I often heard that if you really want to find yourself, you will find God. But I really question it. Because in my experience as an artist, you can for 50 years, in German we say, turn around your own navel. Navel? Mm-hmm. No. Belly. belly button. You can turn around your own belly button. So I just have a question, because to me it's not that obvious, you know, that finding yourself means finding God.
No.
Well, if I can respond to that, I mean, finding God, you know, it's like some find it in an instance, find God in an instance, and some take a couple of years, but I didn't find God as an artist. I mean, I wasn't an artist before I found God. I was like a young kid seeking acceptance and love. And, you know, the street didn't give it to me, what I needed, so I found it in God. And yeah, that didn't really have something to do with being an artist, because I wasn't, but it did have something to do with creativity, though. Yeah, so that's how I look at it.
Great. John?
Yeah, just quickly, that in a sense, it's the audience that may well define your personality, unless you're going to decide who you are. In other words, you are faithful to who you are. Many times in my career, I have had the opportunity of, another rude word, playing the whore, to try and give people what they wanted from me. You know, if you're working within the church, it keeps changing. So do you keep trying to please? I actually had a vision at one point that I was like a lighthouse. It sounds arrogant, but I don't care whether you think that anyway. And that basically, instead of turning my lighthouse round to shine in different directions and try and please the various people, I was just going to wait while this happened around me. It's not necessarily the thing that I can do nowadays, but instead of me moving, instead of you moving to try and accommodate and to try and please, think about, well, if I want to stay true to who I am, maybe the time will come. Beethoven, I think, said at one point, they'll like it one day.
They'll like it one day. Great. But there may be trials and tribulations along the way, and our third topic is burnout, or if you like, the stresses of artistic work experienced as an inability to work, or a creative paralysis. And they can be, I've got a wonderful visual here of the one who feels burnt out in the midst of a group, accompanied by feelings of panic or despair or hopelessness or emotional numbness, perhaps. And from what I've said about the conflicted senses of self, it should be obvious that can also result from strong conflict or disparities in that area. Burnout is, of course, exacerbated or maybe brought on by physical exhaustion. When energy is depleted, many of us feel far more vulnerable, lacking in confidence. But the deeper psychological causes are more significant, the things that can't be fixed by a few days on the beach and some tender, loving care, and that's if you're lucky enough to find that. The psychological causes of artistic burnout are often related to the stress of being caught by very real but very impossible demands and conflicting pressures. So many artists work outside of institutions, often alone, without support structures. We've been exploring that today. We have more than an inkling of the causes of pressure and burnout. I just want to mention one, the idea of financial instability. A survey in 2012 by the Musicians Union revealed that over half of musicians surveyed earn less than 23,000 euros a year, and 60% of them had worked for free in the last 12 months. Only 35% are paying into any kind of pension scheme. For actors, in the UK at least, it's even worse. Those earning more than £20,000, 23,000 euros, make up less than 2% of those surveying. And over 75% of actors in the UK earn less than 6,000 euros a year. But we think that considering artists working in the digital age, maybe downloads are the way to go. Well, musicians' earnings are not so great. And here's a chart from 2015, excluding royalties. little chart. So now, correct me, gentlemen, on stage if I'm wrong. But if you're trying to sell CDs at $12 each, and you want to make the U.S. monthly minimum wage of $1,260 a month. $1,260 a month. Let's call that just under £1,000 a month. Let's call that. I don't know what it is in euros today. I haven't checked. It's not much, but it's the U.S. minimum wage. You'd have to sell 105 of these CDs a month. Now that's self-distributed. You're taking 100%. If you're signed to a label, of course, then who may take a huge percentage, you need to shift 457 CDs a month. But downloads is, and that's if you're, that's if you're managing to deduct cheap postage costs. Now, music downloads a similar story. So, say you're using Bandcamp. Anybody use Bandcamp here, or is that actually completely superseded by something else? Quite possible. They take a 15% cut. I'm told you'd need to sell 148 units of your album at $10 a throw to make this minimum wage. Or if you're going via iTunes and you have a distributor taking more of a cut, between them 40%, well, double that, 210 units. Well, surely streaming must be the way to go. Google paying 0.179 per track. That's pence. You'd need 70,931 downloads a month to make this a minimum wage, and that's if you're an unsigned artist. If you're signed and with Apple, but signed to a label, then it sort of jumps up to 971,000 download streaming tracks a month, and apparently with Spotify signed to an agent, a massive 1,117,000 downloads a month of some of your songs. Well, you don't really need a seminar here to reveal how difficult it is to make a living from the arts. The temptation is to think that everyone else is succeeding and you're the only one not making it. But in fact, as we know, the successes are a tiny minority, and many share the problems that you face. An Australian poet and playwright, columnist, librettist, all these things she does, Alison Croghan, she wrote, "Artists work very hard, usually in multiple ways, on several different projects. But this labor seldom gives you a regular income, so you're coping with stresses that don't have to do with your work, but are a result of it. Successes that don't have to do with your result, but are a result of it." What I mean is, you may be very good at solving problems within your art form, but you've got the stresses coming from things that you've not been trained, you don't necessarily have the talent to do, leading to helplessness, leading to a challenge to your sense of being able to do anything. No amount of the kind of work that you feel called to do, no amount of performing or composing or painting, no immersion ever deeper in your beloved vocation can fix the damage that's being done to your physical or your financial or your relational health by the stress. Instead, you find yourself you can't switch off. You're tempted to accept any work, including low-paid, sometimes unpaid. Again, we've looked at this already today, resulting in maybe a lot of hours without being able to pay any bills from it. Never mind contributing to your pension or your superannuation scheme. More guilt, more stress. But burnout and the loss of passion is particularly disheartening for artists who work from passion. When the passion dies, disappears, or is crippled, the shock is, some have compared it to bereavement. And there's an argument for approaching it the way bereaved people are counseled, recognizing the stages that you can go through. So, for example, in this loss of passion, feels like a death of a loved one, shock and denial. shock and denial, typical first stage of grief. This isn't bad. This isn't happening. I've survived worse. I'll just cut a few hours from my sleep. I'll just have a little less time with my family. But soon you move into pain and guilt. I'm not taking time off. I'm not seeing my friends. Has this all been some kind of huge mistake? But there's anger and bargaining comes into it. This is all someone else's fault. This is the fault of my clients or the conductor or the public. Blaming the public is a great one, really, because there's so many of them. Reflection and loneliness. You're not out of the trough yet of bereavement, but you're beginning to realize I need to set things straight. And then there is an upward turn. I'm in a rut, but I can get out of this. And the beginnings of reconstruction. How do I make sure that I never have to go through this again? And finally, acceptance and hope. It was bad, but I've made changes. I'm on my way up. So 7 stages of dealing with loss of passion may be useful to recognize in this. I'm sure you have other things to say about that. I just want to add one more a bit of practical advice on this as well. Again, I think we've heard these the little cartoon there, how we want grief to work and how grief actually works. It's wonderfully different from what we really want to happen. It's a huge mess, basically. But the prevention and self-care, we've looked at some of these together. Ward and others have focused on these things, managing time better, recognizing needs to when to rest, when to play, and forgive me for sounding like your mother, when to eat, and to eat the right things, listening to your body, and becoming more aware of your emotions, your stress levels, the crosstalk or the discrepancies between the different selves. Saying no to things, yes, we've talked about that today as well. Saying no to FOMO, F-O-M-O, the fear of missing out, a very millennial compulsion. Cut back, and as we were reminded by Alexandra at the beginning, ratchet up the gratitude for what you do have. Addressing drives and compulsions, especially the ones that you think actually fuel your passion, and they make up your sense of vocation, but they may be doing you damaging. They may be tying you down. For example, you might be drawn to perfectionism and a compulsion to get every little detail right before you sign off on a piece of work. Well, we know perfectionism can actually lead to procrastination in a big way. Well, okay, I know that. Or you focus, or another part of you, you realize that you'll never be good enough to get there, so why even start? That's a great procrastination. Or you focus down so much on the small things that you lose the big picture. You let relationships slide, you let good habits go, you miss deadlines, and you mount up troubles. So a few practical items on burnout, but I'd be interested to hear what you have to say, what you guys have to say. We've got a couple more minutes to look at prevention and self-care. Burnout and stresses in. We heard how your conversion came from a time of burnout. But since you became a Christian, have you been also dealt with difficult times?
Yeah,
Rivellino?
definitely. I mean, only it's like the moment that I started working full time as an artist and entrepreneur. That was in 2006, and before that, I was working like a free full-time job next to my regular job, my paid job, for 10 years. But when I started working full-time, I had like 3, the 7 fat years, I had like 3 fat years. I was earning quite a lot, but like when you're a starting entrepreneur, you don't really realize that you're making such great amounts of money. So I didn't save up anything. I was like just spending, I was like, okay, I'm going on a holiday. Oh, I like these shoes. Oh, I need this bike, or oh, that car looks good. I was spending, and then after 3 years, like some clients cut back, and I just invested a huge amount of money in a new album, and I was like, oh shoot, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do now? I was in shock, and I was like in denial. I was in denial. So I said, no, it'll get better, and new clients will come, and blah 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 blah. So that took, I think, like a year, and then I started realizing that okay, it's not going to get any better anytime soon, because it was like, you know, the financial crisis worldwide, so everyone was cutting back on investments, and for me that was like, yeah, a tough period. Actually, the acceptance part was like a real big deal to me, and then actually finding out, okay, so now I have, what do I do? I didn't know where to go, so I talked to some people because I had a lot of shame, you know, because I thought like, yeah, see, you can't handle the money. Like, I felt like this little devil's like, see, you're not a good artist, you're not a good entrepreneur, look at your administration, you made a mess out of it. So I was like hearing this voice all the time. So that for me was like a real, yeah, big deal. So I was looking for a way, so how do I get out of this? I mean, I can't get like an employment thing because I'm an entrepreneur. I can't go and borrow money, you know, because it's weird that, like, it's not that people didn't see me, but like they saw that I had a good life, and now all of a sudden it's nowhere. So the way that I dealt with it was like just accepting the circumstances, and yeah, trying to build up a buffer, you know. I had to start at the bottom again, and just really take time to reflect on, so what did I do wrong, and start doing it differently, you know.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like from the moment that I accepted it, I had to go to reflection and to really start doing things in another way. And like, it was stressful at the time because I felt like I couldn't take time off to heal or take time off to relax, you know, because like the meter was still running. I had to pay the rent, take care of the children, you know. So that felt really stressful because I had a mortgage and stuff. So, you know, yeah.
Okay, thank you, and John.
Yeah, for me, I don't think I've ever suffered from writer's cramp. Most of the time, when people say to me, shall we pray that you'll get us some new inspiration? I just say, no, please do not pray that. I've got enough inspiration to deal with for a few years to come, so thank you very much. But, yes, there have been some really, really black times, and I would say 1999 was the worst time in my life, when, funnily enough, I was working for JC 2000 project, which was all terribly glitzy, and happening in Britain, and big budgets were talked about, and I kept on going back from a little village in the south of Paris, back to England, back to and fro, and I just got perpetual culture shock, and it wiped me out so badly that I sort of went through a summer which was absolutely awful, and I came to Christian Artists in the middle of it and wrote a song called "Waiting for Summer," which is basically the most depressing song that you could possibly... It's almost as bad as Leonard Cohen, you know. But no, I'm only joking.
Good, actually.
Yeah, you know what I mean, yeah. And so there is this pressure that you are under when you are in culture where somebody claims that they can do something, and you know full well where you are, you can't. Or you have friends who you were at college with, university with, and you see what they're doing, and you're thinking, they would not do what I'm doing now. This is just total madness. And how many times do I really go down with that? So, yeah, once you start comparing to other people, then you do lose your footing. And for me, there was no way out of it. Jason Carter, who was with me at the time, he said, well, why don't you write a song about it? So that's where it came from. And what happens in a situation like that is that you go quiet. You go into yourself. You don't want to see anybody. You don't want to answer the phone. You really do not want to do that. And there's a line in that song which says, so if you should call me, please let me be dumb. One hasn't got anything to say at times like that. So yeah, I have known what it is to be really low, depressed. I've also do suffer continually bouts of quite high blood pressure because of what I really feel is so important. I went to a therapist at one point, and she said, "Could you tell me, what you think is important?" And I told her what I thought was important. And she said, "Well, yeah, but is it really that important?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "I can see that." Oh. And that was the end of the conversation. But that is a source of real pressure that you torture yourself with because you're coming out. You want to go forward. Nothing will hold you back.
Okay. Well, I need to hand over to Jill for some remaining interviews. I just want to say that the self-employed artist has not chosen an easy path. I think we can see that. And there are particular pressures and difficulties in the arts sector. A strong sense of vocation, a robust sense of self can help you surf the waves, if you like, riding the ups and downs. The social self can be unstable and risky when you build your confidence with it, but it's also the place where you get support and affirmation and networking, sharing sadness and burdens. Burnout remains a danger in professions where pressures arise not because in your work, but because of your work, in areas that you may not be trained or skilled in managing. It's vital to be practical, it's vital to be realistic, to find ways of speaking the truth, of hearing the truth, and to make the most of conferences like this, where communities of practice and supportive relationships between artists who seek to work solo Dei Gloria, for the glory of God. So thank you so much for listening, for working with me this afternoon, and special thanks to John Featherston and Revelino Richters for being so honest and wise about their experience in the art forms. And I hand over to Jill now, but please express your thanks to them.
Jeffrey, thank you. A little piece of art and remembrance.
You're kind.
So that is our payment,
I know that, yes. I don't expect any other. But on eBay, these get a lot.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
So if there are any questions left, talk to Jeffrey during dinner. We move on with 2 more interviews. It's up to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lean. Just before I do, is Renska here? Renska, can you give me a wave? Hello. Great. I'm glad you're here. That's good. Just before we do segue, I'd like to recommend a book to you. I was actually having a really good chat with Jeffrey over supper last night, and we were talking about this whole issue of burnout. And I came to Christian Artists with a book that I've actually read before, but I wanted to go back to. And it's called Working from a Place of Rest. And it's by a gentleman called Tony Horsfall. Tony is a freelance trainer and retreat leader, and he's written quite regularly on this issue. And the book is drawn on Jesus' encounter with the woman at the well. The woman of Samaria is another way you might understand that in John 4. And it's a really helpful book if this is an area that you're thinking, I need to be just a little bit more aware of this area, or, yeah, I'd like to read up on it. But just for your encouragement, as he writes, he says, come and sit by the well for a while. Take some time out to reflect on how you're living and working. Watch Jesus and see how he does it. Listen to what the Spirit may be saying to you deep within, at the center of your being. And maybe, just maybe, God will give you some insights that will change your life and sustain your ministry over the long haul. So the book is called Working from a Place of Rest. If you're interested, just come and see me if you'd like to get some more details on it. But it's got some really good reflective questions in there as well. It might be helpful for some of you to read if this is an area of perhaps vulnerability for you at the moment, or something that would encourage you. So that's a recommendation. So let's continue then, and I've got 2 guests to speak with before we break for supper. And my first guest is Angelique Petit from France. So Angelique, would you like to come and join me on stage? Thank you. Let's give her a hand. Hello, Angelique.
Hello.
So, this is your second time at Christian Artists.
Yes,
Yes, okay.
absolutely.
So, first time round was obviously positive, made an impact on you.
Yeah.
And this is round 2, so that's good.
It's good.
Can you tell us where you're from and what your art form is?
Okay, so I come from France. I live in Paris, and my form is mime and dance movement. Yeah.
Okay. And can you just tell us how you started to get into this area, this art form?
Okay, long story.
Make it short.
Okay, I tried. So I discovered dance when I was 5 years old.
Okay.
So I begin with some classes of dance, and when I have 8 years old, I discovered the very famous artist Michael Jackson, and I was totally crazy about the movement of this man. And I said, wow, what is this movement? I can't understand how he can do that. So that's why after I chose the hip-hop movement, and I continue to take some classes, and I continue in a real school of dance. And when I have 15 years old, I begin to work in the one company. And when I have 18 years old, I have my first contract. That's correct? Contract, yeah. So after that, I continue to search about my form, about my artistic identity, and I continue to search in the about Michael Jackson work. So and I've been j'étais sorry. I continue to read about Michael Jackson work, and I would like to know how we can work, how we can make this special movement, because he's very quick. So my mind, I was totally crazy about it. And one day I discovered he meets Marcel Marceau in France. And I said, wow, Mama, who is this guy? And she said me, my mom said me, he's in France, he have a school. I said, no way. And for my birthday, my mom picked me up, and I saw a show of Marcel Marceau. So after I decided to quit my school of dance in Paris, and I choose to change my way and to have a second formation. So I was a student of Marcel Marceau, and for 2 years. And after 2 years, he asked me to join the company. So I work with him during some months, and we have a tour. And that's my way.
That's some of your journey. Thank you. So, and Marcel Marceau is very well known, obviously, in the mime and physical theatre world. But can you just tell us perhaps a couple of things that from that formal training that you've been able to apply to your life now? What were the important things that you learnt from him?
Okay. For sure, I learned different discipline with different techniques. So I continue to form myself by different workshops. But with Marcel Marceau, I think for artists it's very important to have a discipline, and it's not a bad thing. And what I can say about him. He encouraged us a lot about what is your movement, because I have my character, Beep. It was the character of Marcel Marceau, very famous. But he said, I don't teach you the mime. You have need to be you. You have need to find your way. You have need to find your movement, and you have need to find your character on stage. I am Beep, but You're not beep. I don't work to make a little beep.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Okay, so not we would sometimes say that a mini me,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
a minion maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, to be you, to be authentically you.
Exactly.
Okay, and we've obviously had a little bit of time to chat, and I know that we've talked about that there have been challenges in your journey, but the actual fact is that you perhaps have come with some encouragements for people here at Christian Artists, haven't you?
I have some notes, sorry, because my English, it's like, I don't know.
That's okay. So perhaps you could give us just a couple of those encouragements that would really speak to people and help them as they reflect a bit this week.
It's the last question.
Yeah.
So, I have many points. Yeah, because I have a lot of notes. So I prepare something for you because yesterday night God spoke to me a lot. And what I said you now, I preach for myself in first. So the first point, I think it's to be thankful every day about your gift, because God gives you something, even if it's small, you have need to be thankful about it. Mm-hmm. It's very important. The second point is stay curious. And a lot of time God say that, stay curious, observe your word, because it's the key for the creativity. You have need to stay curious. So go on the museum, see a movie, whatever. Okay. There is so many ways to do that. Yeah. After, it's very important. Speak well. Speak well about you. Speak well about your kind of heart, because to be an artist, it's so difficult. We have so many critics. Mm-hmm. So it's very important to stop to say, I'm not good, or because sometimes on my way, you became alone. You have need to go alone. It just like that. It's not about you don't have friends enough, but it's about God would like to do something with your life. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it's hard and you have need to go alone. So encourage yourself and speak well. It's okay to know, I am a daughter or son of God, but you have need to speak with your mouth, because this year I discovered what is the declaration. It's very important to speak well about you. Mm-hmm. So take a mirror and say, I'm so beautiful. You're great, girl. You're great, man. Okay. After, it's, very important. Work and stop comparison. Mm-hmm. Continue to form yourself. I think someone speak about it. Continue. It's very important. And stop to compare yourself with another one, because you can try to be another one because it's down. So you have need to be you, because you're unique. You're a creation of God, and we have need to remember that we are important for God, and it's not nothing. Yep. I remember it's a pastor of Hillsong Church, because I am a part of it. And last year, the theme, it was to be a pioneer. And a pioneer, it's not about performance, but it's about you stay there. You continue to walk, even if you feel not good, even if you're in a bad season about your creation, you have need to stay on the path. Because there is a lot of good people outside, a lot of talented, but you have need to stay. I think that for me that's a pioneer. And the last point about it, I have a verses in the Bible. It's in Ephesians 2:10. So I try to be good in English now. So, for we are His workmanship, created in Christ Jesus, unto good works. In French version, it's rich life with good action, with God hath before ordained that we should walk in them. So it's important to walk, to continue to walk, because in mime, for example, when we walk, you walk like that. So you have an impression, I don't make a step, but for real, I make a real step, because I continue, and you can see the line. You can see my my way, my way. So continue to walk.
Thank you so much for those encouragements. Thank you for the visual demonstration.
Yeah, thank you.
Angelique, Vicky. Some really great encouragements, and it would be lovely to have had a little bit more time with Angelique, but it was great that you gave us that summary, and thank you ever so much. Well, our final guest is Renske. Renske, if you would come to the stage, and let's give Renske a hand as well. Wonderful. And do feel free, as I say, to connect with the artists that I've had up here on stage in the bar or over coffee. I'm sure they're all really happy to chat further with you. Sometimes questions come a bit later, don't they? Because we're busy kind of absorbing who these people are and what their ministry is, how they're expressing themselves artistically. And sometimes we don't have the questions until later, but I'm sure that each and every one would be very happy to engage in conversation. So do take the opportunity. That's an encouragement to network and to encourage one another while we're here at Christian Artists. So, Renske, how do I pronounce your surname?
You correctly, Renske.
Van Twillert?
Oh, Van Twillert. Oh, yeah, Van Twillert.
Van Twillert.
Van
Okay.
Twillert.
Oh, fantastic. Well, welcome. And you're from the Netherlands.
Yes.
And Renske, do tell us which area of art you're involved in.
Yeah, there's two things. I have my own business where I'm a designer for wedding invitations and birth announcement cards. And I'm a printmaker focusing on block printing and etching.
Wonderful, thank you. And I do actually remember you sharing your work last year, which was good. And you were also showing us how you were able to adapt and diversify a little bit in your work as well. So can you just tell us how you actually got started as an illustrator and printmaker?
Yeah, well, the story starts, again, for almost everyone said it. When I was a little kid, I was drawing all the time. I asked my mother for a bowl of eggs, and she was like, what are you going to do with eggs? And so I have this book from the library, and it shows me how to draw eggs with shadows and everything. I want to practice. So I think I was about 7 or 8 years old. Yeah. My parents are farmers. Their parents are farmers. Their parents are farmers. So where it came from, I have no clue. Yeah. But I was always drawing, and at a certain point, actually, someone told me that you can make, you can be a professional artist. There are art schools. I was like, what? Yeah. There are art schools.
Okay. Okay.
I never went to museums or anything, but it's just in me. Yeah.
But you did go to art school.
Yes.
And which one did you go to?
I went to the Artes in Zwolle.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's in the Netherlands.
It's in the Netherlands, and I studied illustration. So I graduated as a book illustrator.
Okay. And out of your formal training, perhaps what was one of the things that you really took into your working life?
What I really took in was to try to find my own voice, because I had a really hard time. I was young when I started art school. I had no clue who I was back then. And my artists, my teachers, they saw my work and they were like, "Where is you? Where is the Renske in this?" And it was a struggle. It was really hard. But now that I'm at a point where I can say, "Yeah, there's the Renske in the work." So, yeah.
Okay. And how have you actually adapted your work? Because, like you say, you've gone into a number of areas now. But sort of what triggered that for you? What was the reason for that?
Well, after art school, there were a couple of years where I was really searching for who am I? What do I want to do? Where to find a market? I didn't know. I was doing all sorts of stuff. And then actually, our own wedding, I went on for designing for the wedding, the styling and everything. And I was like, I love this because it's pointing me towards something that I really love and sort of an essential part of who we are, the essence of who we are. And from there, I started the business. First, I started for styling for weddings, and then I became making stamps, and then finally, one day had the courage to say yes to a question, whether I designed wedding invitations, and that was then the rest was history.
Yeah. So a big part was your own personal enjoyment, and that was a huge factor in this sort of slight change of direction. That's wonderful. Yeah. And have there been some challenges for you along the way? Have you had some things that you've had to really face up to and kind of go, okay?
Yeah. I did not learn marketing or how to be an entrepreneur at art school at all. Okay. I think the only thing I just remembered was how to apply for this. What's it called? Like a social. You get media? Money. No, you get money and then you can make art.
A grant.
A grant. De WIC. What's that in English? De WIC. De WIC, die uitkering die er toch.
That's a part of the social security.
Yeah, how to apply for social security, something, so you get an income. That's what I remembered, but I had no clue. So that was something I really had to learn, how to talk to clients, how to make invoices, how to set up an administration. My husband taught me a lot about management and an online website, how to be present online, how to be visible. These were, for me, were the big struggles that I had to face.
Yeah, okay. And I remember you talking a little bit about that last year when we were discussing this. And but was there anything this year from some of the speakers today that you thought that really resonated with me? I had to do that.
Actually, this morning with Alexandra, I was like, I never thought of a business plan. I'm just basically doing something.
Yeah, okay.
So that's something that I really need to do, actually. Because I've been... basically, I just kind of fell into this work after the wedding, and things kind of took off, and people liked what I was doing, so I got a lot of questions. But then actually these last 3 months, when I looked at my income, I was like, I worked really hard, but is this the profit that I made? I just, I could barely pay the babysitter, so I could work. So that's something I realized this morning. I really need to, get my goals right again, and have a look at that.
A bit more conscious and intentional. Yeah. Okay. And so takeaways, because this is a whistle-stop tour. If there were a couple of things that you would like to say, pieces of advice for everyone here, perhaps those particularly who resonate with your art form, what pieces of advice would you give to this?
Also wrote down a couple of things. I think online visibility, we also spoke about it already, but make sure your website, your Facebook, Instagram, that the story is right, that if people meet you in person and hear what you do, then they have to see it on the website again. When they're at home, they check your website. It has to, be right. On Instagram, I have a hard time also making a picture of myself as being, look at me, successful illustrator. I try to draw people into the process of making things. I try to post pictures, not too often, but of, my working table, what's on it at the moment, or look at this pile of cardboard. I'm going to cut it today into a wedding invitation. People really like that. And that's something that I enjoy doing. And... something that that was an advice at art school, actually, that I got, is if nothing works and you don't get enough income, double your prices. You've got nothing to lose.
Fantastic.
I once had a chat a couple of years ago with Wouter, and he said, Renske, you really need to raise your prices. And the moment I did that, I'm out of breath. The moment I did that, I got a new group of clients who had saved more money to pay me, and they saw the worth of my work and the price, and they were like, sounds good to us. So I could work with higher budgets, making so many such more interesting works, nicer pieces of paper, nicer printing techniques, and I loved my work more. So that's an advice I really want to give you. If nothing works, double the prices, because it will draw people to you who see how much your work is worth.
Sort of what we would say, reposition yourself.
Yes.
In the marketplace, and perhaps be able to encompass new audiences and new markets as a result of that. Well, thank you for that very down-to-earth and practical advice. That was really, really great. And you're doing some workshops here this year? Are you?
Yes, a cooperation with Jennifer Planke.
Okay.
We're going to do printing and painting.
Okay.
And in the afternoon, a liner block printing workshop.
Wonderful. So if people want to connect with you and ask a few more questions of a very practical nature, you'd be willing to do that in workshops and beyond?
Yes, and please, if you have any questions during coffee, lunch, dinner, find our table. There's a little 2-year-old boy with us, but don't think you cannot speak to me. Please come up, and I'd love to talk. Yeah.
Great. Renske, thank you very much. Renske van Tullet. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jill. Okay, it's almost time for dinner, so see you at dinner. And please be back in time at 7:30. So, yes, 7:30, we start again. Bless you.